Mr. Grow It. From the Stash Podcast.
Thanks to AC Infinity for sponsoring this episode. Check out their Controller 69, which can help automate your environment's conditions. It'll automatically turn on and off equipment to help control the temperature, humidity, VPD, light schedule, and even the oscillating fans. Click the link in the description section below so you can learn more about the Controller 69, and the discount code MrGrowIt15 works on both Amazon and their website, acinfinity.com.
Are you a grower? Are you tired of lugging around too many bottles? Is it too expensive? Is it so confusing? Tired of reading feed charts? Well, guess what? There is an easier way. Introducing the Stash Blend. You can now get your bag of Stash Blend premium additives that you can add to your garden using just about any base nutrients. Go to stashblend.com and get your order today.
Boys,
Welcome back.
welcome back. This is what we do, kind of like Power Rangers.
Another in-person episode? What?
That's good.
Another
It's
one.
nuts. I think
Another
that's
one.
all we should do.
Right?
Unless we're on
about it.
twitch.tv/from the stash, we should only do these.
Yeah.
Or unless we're in Discord because of patreon.com/from the stash. Funny enough, same
name. That's
Same
coincidence.
name. What a coincidence. If it wasn't for those, then it's just in person.
I wonder if people actually know that we go live twice a week on Twitch.
I'm glad they don't, because we don't do that.
We don't do it anymore?
Twice a month.
Twice a month. Twice a week. Oh my God. That's
Yeah, we
high
used to.
obligations.
We used
High
to. You guys
obligations.
remember? We were doing that for a while.
We were.
Twice a week, yeah, we did.
It was too much, man.
Yeah,
Too
it was a
much.
lot. It was a lot. Wasn't
Now
it?
we do twice a month.
We
Felt
didn't,
like a
do any, we didn't
Kardashian.
get anything else done.
More
We just went
reasonable.
live. Yeah,
We
but
quite literally did nothing
make sure you come
else.
check us out, twitch.tv/from the stash. It's always a hoot over there. None of the content over there makes its way over here. So it's
Uncensored.
uncensored and
lots
raw.
of token, and we actually see plants over there as well.
Oh yeah, we
which
do
is
little
pretty cool.
garden
Yeah.
tours. We did
Plants,
this
token, all that good
Stash
stuff.
Blend.
Yeah, we do giveaways for Stash Blend over
We
there
do.
too.
Yeah.
I forgot how
We do.
banging our Twitch actually is, boys.
We've
We
got-
underestimate our Twitch. Is actually a banging show.
Yeah, it is.
Of course.
Yeah, come join the couple hundred
Come
people with
join
us every couple times a month, and I think you guys will have a lot of fun.
I'm gonna watch it myself. I forgot how dope it was as we're just describing it. I
Yeah.
was like, that's
That's pretty fun.
fire. Like, yeah.
You know what else is fire? I was actually just looking at Chris's book here,
Dude.
and man,
There's an autograph in it.
there's an autograph in here. But I was actually admiring the photos because I can't show them to you.
Dude,
for
community-based
obvious
photos?
reasons. Actually, I can show you this one. Just some of the photos. I don't know if the
Camera's gonna
camera
pick it
will
up.
pick it up, but it's just they're so
You can
high,
get an idea of what it would be. Cause
so
there's
high
pictures in a
quality.
book.
Or is every single photo in here donated by the community?
No, some of them are mine.
Some of them are
Yeah,
your
some of
photos.
them are
Yours
mine.
grows.
But there's
would
also a
never
lot
tell.
of community folks that submitted in photography.
Who's on the cover?
This is grown by the No-Till Kings. The
No-Till
photographer
Kings.
is Video Macro on Instagram.
Nice, dude. That's like what I like is you kept that same style with this book.
Yeah.
But like the flower that you decided to choose, this is what's hot right now. That look,
Yep.
that's the look.
Yep.
That's the Zazas right there.
Yep.
That's what everybody
Guess
wants.
who started it?
Guess who started?
Mr. Grow
Guess
It.
who's the starter of
Yeah,
this?
right.
Yep.
He started.
He
this
started taking. He's the
gangster-ish.
first person to start taking pictures of this plant.
Yep.
But yeah,
Guess who
shout out
started taking
to
plants?
the photographers that submitted and stuff. Let me just go through the list real quick.
Please.
Kiss Organics. Shout out Tad Hussey. Appreciate all the input that he put
Got the
in
hustle,
this.
hustle.
Matt Powers, Home Grow TV. Shout out Dakota, Mr. Q. Tony Fernandez, Matthew Gates from Zentanol Consulting, Robert Rankin, McCannabis Luke.
Hey,
You guys all know Luke, yeah.
yeah, man. Hell yeah, Luke.
Type 3 cannabis. Or type cannabis.
Cannabis.
So shout out to them. They
Yeah, man.
submitted some really good photography. It's an honor to have them within the book because it definitely made the book better with the
Well, there's
photography.
people who
So-
probably submitted too that just didn't make the cut, but it wasn't for any particular reason. There just was so many to choose.
so many,
of. Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of
That's what I'm
submissions.
saying,
Yeah,
of
it's
amazing
impossible.
shots.
Yeah.
Like, that's the tough part too, is when you're looking at these things, not just in a subjective sense, but of what you already have for inventory. Like, well, I've already got these photos that I needed, so I need these specific ones. You know,
That's what I said, and I said specifically I didn't need any flower pics, and then all I got was flower pics.
because that's the most proud thing to show. It's like
Yeah.
nobody's going to send a dick pic with their shirt on and pants on. They're going to show the whole tang, bud. And I think that's where, in this case, like, that's the goods. That's the
Yeah.
goods to show. But at the same time, it's like that's that recognition to be like, hey, man, I'm featured in a book. You know, like Eric Nugshot's book. Like that's all these photos that are like iconic shots now. These are going to be iconic photos forever. You know, it's really cool, man.
But thanks to everyone who has purchased the book so far, who has left a positive review on Amazon. That means so much to me. That's one of the biggest things you can do is leave a review on Amazon. It helps out with the rankings so much. It was a bestseller on Amazon in the cultivation category, so it's amazing to see that up there.
Right out of the gate, too.
And it's because of you guys purchasing it, leaving a review, and thank you. And it's also available on my website now, mrgrowit.com, and then if you want a signed copy, all you have to do during checkout is just say in the comments you want it signed, and I'll sign it and ship it out to you. I only am shipping to the States right now. Not really doing international due to the shipping costs and transport fees, all that stuff. And so, mrgrowit.com, and get your signed copy today.
I could see maybe down the road a distributor or maybe a translated copy.
I'll be your distributor.
Yeah, distributor in Canada.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You ever think about one translated for a different language?
Yeah. I'm gonna be
We can do an
working on
audio
different
book soon,
languages.
too, right?
I'll do your Canadian one.
You could do the Canadian
language.
audiobook.
Yeah. Yeah, there, bud.
Yeah.
We
You'll
had
do the East Coast audio. I'll do the Midwest version.
Yeah,
You know?
I saw you working out on that the other day.
We need to get somebody from Texas to hit you with a little,
Yeah.
Southern egg. Like, you want to grow organic? Kind of bust some?
Organic. I got
He's
you.
like, my name's Mr. Groat.
That would be so funny.
Nice cowboy voice.
You got the British.
Oh, hey, mate.
Yeah.
Hey, bud.
Cultivation.
Hey, bro, this is Mr. Groat here.
Right.
Oh, fuck off here.
I want to hear in the comment section who purchased this book and what do you guys think about it. One thing that you can definitely tell with this book is how well the plants are really taken care of.
Maintained, manicured,
pruned.
Pruned?
Yeah,
That's the word?
Pruned. Yeah. It's actually a pretty good. You guys want to talk about that?
You know,
Pruning
No, I
plants.
don't think so either.
no. We're talking about Chris's book this whole episode. No,
It's just an infomercial.
this is all this is. If you're interested, dial the number you see below.
555.
554-555.
Grow big.
This is a great thing though. This is it even taps into this because this is a guide. This is a grow guide right here. A portion of this, I'm sure, is going to be training in a sense.
No, that's the other
No,
book.
not
That's
the
other
book, not the book, not the book of your guide. That's one. Let me finish my sentence. It's one thing that was left out that I think should be talked about. Is like these are other areas that are universal. This isn't organic. This isn't synthetic. This isn't hydro. This is plant training. And I know people who will have a million different medias, but they'll always prune. They'll always deal with this. It doesn't necessarily fit within organic. It doesn't fit with any of these things. But not everybody does the same practice. Some use like the lollipopping technique. Some go full Patrick Swayze and they'll strip it down butt naked. Some will just do a little tucking, But it always seems to be somebody having a strong opinion on you need to be doing some pruning. Do you guys practice this as like a religious-based thing? Like it's nonstop no matter what you're going to be pruning, or is it based on the cultivar?
Every grow. Yeah, every grow I'm doing some sort of pruning. So lollipopping, defoliation is the most common techniques. Pruning techniques. Removing leaves, right? Moving leaves.
For those who don't understand all these
branches, removing branches as well. I definitely lollipop and do some form of defoliation in every single one of my grows. Some more than others. Like you meant, like the small squat sativas that are bushy. I'm going to be taking on more leaves than the taller, spindly, longer internodes. I don't need to take off as many leaves when I'm defoliating there. So.
Yeah. Well, you deal with stuff that'll end up like almost needing it to get that full growth, to have the light penetration, versus others that you can move some of these. Like I'll notice, I'm sure there's a name for it, but the fan leaves that'll have the longer stems on there that aren't tight like the crown leaves, so to speak. Those you can literally tuck and weave underneath a bud site. Others literally will have to be stripped and removed. Some people swear these are like the satellites or the solar panels for your plants. And yeah, for vegging, growing the plant big at a certain point. But oftentimes people will do heavy defoliation or stripping of the leaves leading into flower because the bud sites need to be getting the light. And I think that's the biggest reason people do it. It is a sense of like a high stress technique because you're literally pulling the leaves off. But some people do it slowly but surely, just a little bit here, a little bit there. And that's usually what I do, which it may seem like a slow stress, like I'm just stabbing it little by little by little. But at the same time, I've noticed that my plants recover a little easier. I don't notice the recovery time versus when I'm in there for a day, stripping them off with a garbage bag full of leaves, Do you do a full regimen of just kind of slowly manicuring and cleaning it up, or do you strip the plants? Like, how do you go about it, P?
It's a good conversation. As a matter of fact, if you check out my first book, 7 Steps to Growing,
7 Steps to Pigeons.
I've got a couple good conversation points in there of different techniques that you can follow. You can find that on Amazon as well. You can leave a review.
And that's more, the other book's more of a general guide. That's where I was saying with this isn't even a part 2. This is like a beginner or not. These are like these general things that you're going to apply across the board for growing. It's not necessarily like this is specific for organic. This is specific for hydro. Like you'll notice a more vigorous growing plant maybe will need more defoliation and pruning.
Right. And I think it's a little awkward that you look at Chris when you're talking about my book.
That is true. He did the narration in the audio book. So.
For me, pruning's something that happens from day one all the way pretty much till about week 3 or 4 of flower. And I maintain it for a multitude of reasons, primarily pests. But for performance of plant growth, I want airflow throughout the lower portions of the canopy. I want to make sure I've got maximum strength on my branches for bud sites. And that all comes down to pruning. And you kind of hit the hammer on the nail. And when you said, I thought I said that backwards, and I laughed.
I thought about that too as you said. I was like, "What's that another phrase?"
You didn't say that.
Hit the nail on the head.
Hit the nail on the hammer.
Yep. Slapped it back.
Stop
hitting me.
Stop it. when you said that, this is kind of a technique that transcends garden methods or mediums. You're going to prune your plants no matter what. And I feel if you don't, you're not maximizing the potential of your plant, because you're going to have the plant focusing on areas of growth that are insignificant for the overall performance or overall yield of that plant. So, I think it's important to prune the whole time. And what a great time to start then early in like that first couple weeks of veg to just kind of start to focus on which branches I think are going to be the most important ones and which ones I think are insignificant.
And just to clarify, when you're talking first couple weeks of veg, you're going through a seedling stage first, a couple weeks of seedling, then you're counting veg, or are you counting veg from day one of sprout?
Yeah, normally as soon as it sprouts out of the soil, I rip it apart. Just kidding.
Well, I'd say like once you've got multiple layers of leaves growing, and it's to the point where the plant's developing, it's no longer like clone-sized plant.
There is a seedling stage, but when I count weeks of veg, I include the seedling stage.
Okay. So week 2, you're looking at 14 days from the ground. Now you're starting to pluck off weeks.
Weeks. No, you'd be about week 3.
Yeah. Okay. Week 3, 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. But pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also
going to start training. This is a little different, more of a precision, but this is when my training is going to start. And when the training starts, that's when I also feel my pruning is going to start as well.
I'm going to throw this out there, wild thing. We should do next week's episode about other training techniques that go with this, because there's a lot that go along with pruning. You know what I'm saying? When you think about it, because my pruning is based on my low stress training. If I'm doing heavy low stress training, I might do less pruning because I'm flattening that plant out. If it's tall and it's naked, well, now we're talking lollipop. Now that bottom that's being covered up completely, the canopy has blocked it out. I'm stripping that butt naked. I just got long naked legs. So my technique varies depending on my other training methods. So I think that we'll talk about that. I think maybe next week.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Or they can warp back 3 years when we did the other episode on training.
Or that one. Or go way back and see that one. But this one, in the sense of my defoliation or my pruning, is going to be heavily based on that cultivar and the initial training. So that it makes sense where you're saying, like, if you do the howdy doody, the bend over, well, I might start doing pruning a little sooner, depending. Because if there's a bottom that I see is never going to get anything, I'm removing that. Or if I see that, wow, let it grow, then I might not even strip that off. So it depends on how I'm training that plant and how that cultivar grows. So
same. I mean, I can totally relate. Like, I'm usually doing a top at node 4 or 5, top the plant, allowing those bottom branches to grow up. That's going to help determine my lollipopping.
Yep.
Right? If I'm going to be ripping off some of those lower branches that aren't growing up and being even with the other ones, well, I'm going to remove that during my lollipopping process. When I lollipop, generally it's bottom third of the plant, bottom quarter to bottom third of the plant is just stripping everything down. And then those branches that aren't making it just up with all the others to create an even canopy, I'm removing that as well. So that's how I go about my lollipopping. Usually I'm trying to push that late in veg as possible, to be honest. I'll just do like one lollipopping before flipping to flower. Typically, it's around maybe day 30 from sprout, roughly, depending on growth. Obviously, variables with growing the more indica morphology, where it's smaller, squattier, bushier versus the taller, stragglier ones, longer internodes and stuff like that. So definitely a different approach depending on the way I go about it. But yeah, for lollipopping, I'm definitely doing that before flipping a flower. And I'm also looking to do it early in flower as well because, when you're in the first 3 weeks or so, there is little buds that are starting to develop down the lowers. So I'm plucking those off. And even when I'm getting into flower, day 30, day 40, sometimes there's still buds that are starting to form down there. So I'm stripping those down, lollipopping. So I'm maintaining that lollipop throughout the entire growth cycle.
Yeah, for those of you confused, the term lollipop, that was what I was mentioning of the naked bottoms of the plants, is it looks almost like a lollipop. The top, it's the sucker, the bottom is the stick, so to speak. A lot of that is reasons, too, people do it for IPM methods, is you don't want to necessarily have a ladder to your soil for if you run into mites and then they're going to go down into your soil to get away from any sort of IPM methods you're using up top. The further they're away from them, they could still get down there, but it's not as easy as stuff sitting right into your soil. So that's also a reason. But more people that I see doing this with the lollipop method, I feel like they could have bent their plant and started early in the training methods to not have such a tall plant with nothing on the bottom. But at the same time, you're giving enough time to develop that canopy, that big, strong top area to even produce those big buds. So the argument, I feel like, is looking at your veg time to do all this, the amount of work that goes into your defoliation or pruning, then also your end results and your yield. Did it affect it more? Did it change it? Is it just a better looking, more manicured plant? Or did it save your trimming time? Because sometimes I'll use defoliation to save me in trimming, where I'm like, week 8 in flower, I know I've only got another 2 weeks left, I'm stripping her down. You know what I'm saying? It's because I just know I'm going to have to trim it later. It's not because any other reason. Others I know will do this method early on and call it the swazing technique. Well, they'll go into the room and they'll strip all the fan leaves off the plants where it looks sketchy. I'm like, what the hell's going on? But every commercial grower I see doing that have massive buds. So I'm wondering if there's something to it where as you're into flower and the plants have already developed, they're as big as they're going to get. You just need some initial leaves that are going to be there. You don't necessarily need all those massive fan leaves. And those plants will produce these big fat colas, and they're way easier to trim. I don't know the science to it, honestly. This is just me seeing what's gone on, and every place does it. I don't know if it's a bro science technique that everyone thinks works well, or if there's some science to it, but there's always big yields with this every time I've seen it. Have you ever practiced any of those?
Not stripping down to the level that you're talking about.
Like nude.
Yeah, it's a little scary, but they do bounce back. And yeah, I know it's pretty split sides on people going that route, and then people say, no, leave those leaves. Leave those leaves. Those are the solar panels, like you talked about. And that's the energy. It's taking in that energy for the plant to develop. So I'm kind of on that end where I want to leave some of those leaves. So
you got your solar panels.
Yeah, solar panels. There's nutrition in those leaves, right? If I ever do come into a bind, some of those nutrients are mobile. They'll be able to go to the newer growth. And stripping all the way down, I've never really felt good about it, although I've stripped it down pretty bad, but not like I don't do it religiously.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who invented photosynthesis, but it is something that I believe in. And I believe that it's a process that occurs all the way through the cycle of the plant. You need these leaves to be able to convert light into energy. And removing the leaves to this level, I don't think is necessary. I just think the buds look bigger because you don't have giant fan leaves beside them to kind of drown out how big they are. But maybe there is something to it. But I do believe the level of pruning is necessary to allow for breathing room between the buds, particularly when I'm doing like a scrog. Now, granted, I've only done a scrog like 3 or 4 times, but I don't like having other leaves just sitting on top of other buds. I like to tuck those down or just remove them altogether. But I still have a large amount of fan leaves on my plants as they progress through the stages.
Who would have thought this swazing technique comes from 3 Light? The favorite book everyone likes to quote is, I'm getting at least 3 Light. It's like, oh, okay. $500 grow book. Just want to put that out there. $500. I'm seeing this on growweedeasy.com. This is the reference you had the other day, which great information on this website. But Joshua Hopt was the guy who coined this technique, so to speak. And I mean, again, this is what all of these commercial grows are. This is the bro science argument or the anecdotal shit. Where it's like, who taught this? And it's like, well, this guy, then this guy, and then this. They just follow it. I'm like, okay, I couldn't find any scientific evidence in this post. It was just talking about defoliation and how it's important. It's like, why so extreme? Why do they go to such extreme measures? If you're listening to this or you're watching this on YouTube, drop in the comment section if you have some science or a link or something behind it, because it's interesting how people just follow techniques. You know, this is the lollipop thing where people are like, just strip everything off the bottom. They don't know why. They just do it. Strip it all. Strip everything. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I think the thought process of that, we'd explain that it's sativa, indica, whatever growth patterns, like it's so subjective to how you're growing and how the plant grows before you start doing any of these techniques. I feel like some people are sitting there writing it down, ready to jump in their garden and do it. But like now, the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, be careful with it, because you can stress your plant out and you can waste your time unless you're using these leaves for, like, you're doing it for a cover crop on your plants, right? You're tucking
mulch layer.
So you're utilizing your leaves too. You're not just like stripping it and tossing your plants.
I eat mine.
You eat yours, all right? So I just throw mine in the garbage.
I was at Swank's last night eating his.
I know, and then you handed it back to him. He didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
It's like there's drool in it.
I was like,
He and Winker watched. He's
I ate like 4
He
leaves.
just sprayed IPM. He's like, yeah.
No, I asked him if he sprayed. He said no, and I handed it back to him. He just took it, crumpled it up.
But I think there's definitely science to why people are doing it. But like, what got you guys to do it? Did you do it just because that's what you do? That's what people say to do, or did you say, like, oh man, this bud was covered up by this leaf here, and I need to like?
Well, when you're lollipopping, you kind of touch that first. Is everyone says that it focuses energy on those top bud development, and you know, really, where did that come from? It came from science. It came from fruit trees. Right?
Yeah,
fruit trees. We prune them. We do that lollipopping to where it's better growth. You get better fruit up top if you're shaping the plant like that. Well, same thing happened with these medicinal plants, and yes, it works. You know, you're moving that lower growth. A lot of that lower growth ends up being larf, depending on genetics. I've had some genetics where it's just super dense all the way down, which is just awesome. But for the most part, many of these genetics are going to be very larfy on the bottom section of it. Yeah. So removing that bottom quarter, bottom third is going to lead to better top bud development, and yeah, just better buds up top. So
stuff you don't want to trim usually. That bottom stuff is just larfy and not mature, so it's barely, you're not even going to smoke it. It's not going to even turn into good extracts. So the trichomes aren't mature.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, actually, because that's that was always the argument, was like, as to why I got rid of mine. I was just taught those little buds where you're like, oh, this one might be savable, and then you get it and it dries out for 3 days and you're like, where'd it go?
And it's this big. You're like, I thought this would have been like a bowl's worth.
So you're just
like
snipping everything off. You're just snipping it off into the mix, into the trim bin, and it's just like, ugh. And then once you get through 2-3 harvests, the novelty of harvest is gone.
Yeah.
And less is more. I much rather have nothing on the bottom portions of that plant. Because what do you really getting? Like, what is that larf really weighing into as? You know, I can juice it or put it in my shakes. I can make concentrate. I can do all this stuff. And I highly advise that you do that. But after so many harvests, you know how much frozen material I have?
Yeah, we got to get a deep freeze at that point.
I have
smoothies.
I still do. Yeah, I still do every morning.
But it's like, again, when you're growing for yourself, you have such an abundance over time, you just do want to make that end process easier. And I think
that's right.
That's where the argument, like I was saying earlier, is then instead of letting it get so tall where you strip it down, you just low stress train, bend it, and then you could veg less. You don't have a longer veg time. Now, in hindsight, you know, still you go into commercial grow and the plants are taller than you, and the canopy starts where your head is. It's like, why'd you let it grow so big? Like, what was all this veg time? But then you see some plants do just shoot up like that, man. They grow huge, and you take up more square footage by making it wide versus making it tall. So there is an advantage in some cases of more square footage of a canopy by letting it be a tall, skinny, slender plant versus a wide one that those bud sites are too spread apart. They're not necessarily going to be ones that are going to make up that yield with that square footage. So again, like, every form of training needs to be done situationally. It can't just be like, well, strip it down. Why? Well, because Swayze it. Why? Well, three light. Like, that's what the book says, right? $500 book. You know, your book should have been way more expensive. Clearly, at least $300. You know, minimum. We're gonna be able to grow organic. $1,000 for a signature.
That's terrible.
Like, I hate that gating information, man. Like, ugh. But there's a lot of people who are swearing
$500 and you still found the information online.
Yeah, somebody else wrote about it, which is great.
There's another $500 book by Big Mike or something like that. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've seen it.
yeah. I'm not
Like,
surprised.
what the heck?
Advanced?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, oh,
like his
$500
nutrients.
for this one. I forget exactly what it was. I'm like, oh my God.
Was there a naked chick on the front of it?
Two naked chicks and a big stack of money.
Yeah.
And a huge bud.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. The frustrating thing, I
weed
think,
easy.
is yeah. Well, I think people just don't think about the fact of how, like, why they're doing things. They just do it. You know, it's like that needs to be a heavy thought process with pruning, because you can tuck sometimes. You can just tuck these leaves. You don't necessarily have
Before you go to the club?
You could tuck her, you know, whatever you got to do, brother.
Sorry.
But it's more of a situation where you don't have to always. Sometimes you do, where you can't tuck it, you can't move it. But other situations, you need to almost like read the plant. It's not just, this is what it is. Religiously, you go in there and you prune it. This is how you do it. You're not going to go in and strip it down from the bottom every time. It's got to be like, you see how the plant likes it. You see when to hit it. It's not just week 3 is when you know, some people maybe earlier or later. But I feel like ignoring pruning is a huge mistake for a lot of people. That they love this big globe of a plant and then these larfy buds and a couple nice tops.
And forget about the larf, man. Like, it's the bugs.
The bugs, or even like
if you've got these big bushes,
bud rot.
Oh,
Stuck
Yeah,
around,
that's what I was
you know?
going to say. You need to look at the plant. You need to look at the plant. You need to look at where your fan placement is and make sure that air is getting through that canopy. And then if you're seeing any sort of lack of airflow within the plant canopy, that's a good reason to remove some leaves.
Yeah, you might get some powdery mildew in that setup.
Exactly, right. Hot spots, humid
Yep.
spots within there, humid pockets within the plant. It can cause powdery mildew.
Well,
so.
plants perspirate too. If these leaves are stacked on top of each other and you're in a grow tent, like, you'll feel moisture sometimes. Like, what the hell is that?
Oh, yeah.
Plant
you'll
wet?
see it.
It's like they're sweating.
Just drips.
Plants are sweating, you know, and it's like that's where
stagnant air. It's
yeah,
just
and there's no
powdery mildew.
movement, and you got all this foliage just there. That, in my opinion, is the biggest reason for pruning. More than, well, you can get more yield. Well, because the larva. It's like, nah, man. Like, this is an
feel like-
IPM. This is all of the things to keep your plant
I
healthy.
feel like it's almost like
you know?
pruning and the training became a byproduct of keeping your plants clean and healthy and full of circulation.
Yeah.
And then people started to realize, wait a second.
I'm getting more yield from this. I'm getting a better
I'd be
result.
Curious.
Like,
I'd be curious, maybe which came first, the chicken or the
yeah.
egg?
Well, because like
Pruning
some
for
people,
harvest or
again,
pruning
like
for bugs?
if we do get into the precision stress conversation, some people have broken a branch and like, oh, it's super cropping now, or a FIM. Well, what does that stand for? You know, like a lot of these things have been accidental experiments that they're like, oh wow, look at the difference in this. So I do feel like pruning may have been one of those things where they were like, man, this is a nasty leaf. I got to remove it. And they're like, whoa, look at how much more this produced over here. Like, most things are done from experiments. I feel like we as growers sometimes don't do those experiments because somebody else did, and we're like, no, it's just what it is. It's like, maybe let it ride. Leave that big old leaf that you were going to pull and see if it makes that big of a difference. You know, it's like, it's tough to tell until you do it. Reading a book, watching a show, listening to a podcast, take those things in, but I feel like without thinking about your plant and your situation, it's more harmful than helpful, personally.
Yeah. And then knowing when to do it. I mean, we kind of talked about when to do it when you got the defoliation, you know, the leaves are thick within the canopy, removing it then. I typically like to push it as far as I can into veg, you know, right before flipping to flower is when I'll do a nice defoliation. And then I know for the first 14 to 21 days, generally the plant is still stretching, right? The plant is still growing up, foliage is still being grown on it. Then it really starts to pick up flower production from there. So a lot of people will, the first 3 weeks of flowering, will go in there and continue to defoliate. I don't know if you guys do or not, but typically around either day 7 or day 14, day 21 is generally when a lot of these genetics have stopped stretching. And that's a good time to get in there and do one final defoliation before flower production really kicks in. And I know there are some people that are against it. They're like, oh, you're going to stunt your growth if you're ripping off all these leaves right in the start of flower production.
Didn't we just say
it's
to
not
leave veg
real
alone, or flower alone just a couple episodes
it's
ago?
not real catastrophic when it comes to ripping off leaves here and there. I mean, we'll get what was the episode we did with Beast Coast Farmer? Was it the one we did or the
Beast
Garden
Coast
Talk
Grower?
one? Beast Coast Grower, where he's like, yeah, think about it in nature when there's deers roaming around there, just ripping off one leaf here and one leaf there each day. You know what I mean? So it's like,
there's not one time that it happens.
you're right.
It's
They're not
consistent.
just completely stripping down, you know. So plucking off leaves every once in a while is okay as well. But some people will go in and do it day 21, for example, to do one final strip. Then they'll let it go for flower, all of flower. They'll look towards the end of flowering to do maybe one defoliation around day 45. If you're looking at an 8-week cultivar, day 45, let's see if there's any leaves that are covering bud sites. maybe you want to get some leaves down in there in the canopy. Maybe a handful of leaves are being ripped off at around day 45 as well. So that's something I look at as well. But yeah, what days do you guys usually try to?
It's funny because like that's what I was trying to say is people need to understand how subjective and how situational growing is, because just a couple episodes ago we were like, well, when you go into flower, you just coast.
No, that was me. I said it's no touchy.
Yeah.
It's first, but that's after the 3 weeks.
Though.
That's after the 3 weeks.
Well, in some situations, yeah, totally is the case, because you look at some plants that are growing and stretching, but aren't changing too much of how the plant looks and the morphology of it, as where other ones are like vegging more, and it's like, damn it, those leaves got bigger and they've moved, and now I have to go in there and move it. So it's like. It's gonna depend. For me, it's not like, oh, well, this week here. But again, I try to get it later in veg, like you were saying. After the stretch will be another one, and then right towards the very end when I'm getting ready to harvest. Those are my main times of defol. But at the same defol, now I feel like it's weird saying that. Defoliation, pruning. But at the same time, I've had cultivars I don't have to do that. They're not very leafy. Like I had to do that with Chill Out OG. Didn't have to do it with Headbanger. That barely had any leaves. Like it was just sativa like stretchy, kind of lanky.
Yep.
As where I had more of a bush with the Chill Out OG. So I'm in there working her, and I'm like, oh man, that leaf turned into a hand. I gotta pull that off,
Yeah, if I have a plant that's growing tall, stretchy, and I don't have to do any training, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's easy. Makes things a lot easier.
Exactly.
Because it can be time consuming. If you've got a large bushy plant, it does take time to lollipop, do a good lollipopping, and do good defoliation.
Yeah.
It can certainly take time, and if you've got those longer, stretchier ones that really don't need as much work, that's great,
Yeah, those are the ones oftentimes
easy.
you could tuck that leaf.
Yeah.
Instead of having to strip that leaf.
Exactly.
So that's where I think like somebody who's like, just tell me the answer. It's like, well, think about all the variables, because that's what this boils down to, is that you may need to have no touchy because you're good. You may need to be in there 3 times a freaking week tucking those leaves, or you may need to be in there stripping them off a couple times and then you're not going back in. But there's so many variables in how the plant grows, how you train the plant, what stage it's at, and where it's going. Because if you've never grown that cultivar, it could be the stretch is longer than what it may be with another one. Others barely have a stretch when you flip. So to say like, well, I'm going to hit it the first 2 weeks in, or I'm going to hit it 3 weeks in, it's like once the stretch stops, just like you're saying, I have to go based on reading the plant. And reading the plant when you've never read a plant, it's a little difficult. It really is. But at that point, you got to learn. You got to fail forward and figure it out.
You said cultivar. I think you meant strand.
Oh, yeah, strand.
Strand.
Pretty wicked conversation. I think it's kind of sums it all up, that there's a multitude of reasons to really prune your plants, but generally it falls into maintaining it for yield and maintaining for pests. We didn't really touch on it, but you could be pruning for space as well.
Oh yeah, good point.
Trying to maximize around the tent to ensure you get the most amount of plants, or just the right amount of plants. I often find that I've got plants that kind of press themselves up against the tent.
Oh yeah, that's that perspiration stuff I was talking about. Is you want to strip it?
Well, get it off, get it out of there. I don't like that.
I
don't like those
off.
leaves. The ones that just because they get up against the tent and they just do their own thing.
And then they look mutated forever.
Yeah.
It's like something wrong with my plant.
What
Why
happened?
is the leaves poking up? It's like, it's
like,
literally
it went
sat
through
there
the bars of the thing.
That's how it is in that grow box right now, man. Is I've got side
So
ones.
tight.
Not right now, but as I'm bending it, I'm like wrapping up sideways. Let me bend it that way.
Right. And then you know what? You can almost tie that into maybe one of our future episodes if we want to get into like precision training to kind of guide.
Like next week's episode?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe it'll be next
Do
week.
that.
I've only hinted it 7 times.
We'll ask you guys. We'll ask in the chat if you guys want to see something on precision training. We do have training videos, but I don't think
stress techniques.
we haven't really focused on precision stress techniques. So maybe we'll do something like that. Awesome episode, guys. Real huge shout out to our patrons. Man. Seriously, thank you guys for the support. All you guys at the bottom of the
help
screen.
Bring us together.
That's what it is. Right? That's what it is. Patreon.com/From the Stash. We do Discord intimate sessions. It's a ton of fun. We really appreciate you guys for supporting us. And thank you guys. Don't forget stashmerch.com as well. And you see it on the table. That's the best. That's a premium plant additive. Stash Blend at stashblend.com.
Yeah, big shout out to our sponsors, man. AC Infinity in the back, and knock Chris's leg out real quick. And shout out to everybody showing love in the comment section, listening, watching everywhere. Make sure you tune in when we're live over on twitch.tv/From the Stash. Stay beautiful. It's your boy Rob from CLtv. Mr. Grow It, Pigeons 420. Wink on the ones and twos. Have a great day, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.